Tauros was the undisputed king of Gen 1 OU because of the fact that it basically has perfect stats and movesets for the game. It has great speed, great attack, good defense, a massive 21.48% critical hit chance, and it effectively learns every important move in the game, allowing it to get enough coverage to just destroy everything. So when I made a ROM hack earlier this year where we tried Pokemon Red and Blue with competitive movesets, naturally as a solo runner, my first thought was, could Tauros beat the entire game of Pokemon Red and Blue on these settings as a solo challenge? After all, as the bull that ran roughshod over this generation's competitive scene, it would seem like it has everything that it should need to completely crush the game. But, as many people would point out, competitive movesets are really built around the idea of a team, being able to swap out at opportune times, being able to check certain Pokemon from being swapped in, and overall managing a comprehensive strategy across an entire set of 6 Pokemon. Here, however, we're going to see if Tauros is capable of beating the game in a solo challenge where that slow growth rate and the fact that it's going to have to manage everything just on its own could actually make this a major challenge. But we won't know until we try it, so let's get into this. So as we meet Professor Oak outside of Pallet Town, it's time to do a little bit of testing to find out just how good Tauros would be if it had to play an entire solo challenge with opponents using competitive movesets. I have given every Pokemon in the game whatever their moveset is that's listed on Smogon.com, just because that's at least an independent source for movesets rather than just randomly assigning moves myself. You can go ahead and debate me on that down in the comments below. But for now, we are going to pick up our Tauros in the Bulbasaur Ball. That will set us up against the Charizard team of our rival, which I think is going to be the hardest at the end, considering that he's going to have Charizard, he's going to have Exeggutor, he's going to have Gyarados. I think all of those Pokemon are pretty darn good at the end. So he's going to present, I think, a big enough challenge that we're going to have some trouble there. Plus, we are in the slow level up group, and we are running this Tauros with middling DVs, 8 in every stat except 9 in attack. That is the same as all of our opponents as we go through the game. The other factor is that, like last time, I'm locking stat experience at 0. So that we are on a level playing field with our opponents. There will be no vitamins in this or any other manipulations in order to boost our stats to make us stronger than our opponents. So with that, it's time to get into this challenge, starting with rival number 1. Of course, he has the Charmander, but our Tauros, spelled with OU instead of an AU there, is ready to take this Pokemon on, and the obvious play is just Earthquake. We get an easy one-hit KO on the Charmander, completely destroying it, and we're ready to move on in the game. Now, honestly, the biggest challenge I expect to see as we go through this run is that we don't have Thunderbolt on this set. I'm actually running Blizzard, Earthquake, Body Slam, and Hyper Beam as my moveset, and I'm not allowed to change it because that's what was listed as its moveset on Smogon, and I'm just interested to see how far we actually go with this set. In theory, these are really good moves. We could try to freeze opponents, we could try to get paralysis, we have good enough moves to KO things with decent ranges, I think. The real challenge is going to be that slow level up rate. As a slow level up Pokemon, we're only going to be about level 40 when we get to the league, assuming we don't slam rare candies before that. And that could make this really, really difficult, just given that all of the league's Pokemon are basically level 50 plus in this version of the game. Still, for now, I think there's no reason to take optional battles. We can easily get to the last bug catcher here in Viridian Forest, and then it's just right on to Brocky Boy. So Brock, attempt number 1 against the Geodude. I think the best play is Blizzard. It has lowered special than defense, and Blizzard is going to be a 2-hit KO, but he goes Explosion, easily knocking us out on the first attempt. The fact that we are not getting a one-hitter there could make this one a little bit random, but I do think it's worth taking a couple of attempts here. Next attempt, he goes Seismic Toss instead, and then we get a critical hit with Blizzard, but it was not enough to one-shot. That's because on minimum battles, we're only coming here at level 6, which is definitely not looking like enough to get through here unless we manage to hit 2 blizzards in a row. That technically should happen most of the time, but still, the first 2 attempts we were not able to actually hit twice. It's not until the 4th attempt that we actually land 2 blizzards to knock out the Geodude. We level up only to level 7 because of our slow level up rate, and now Onix is rocking Bind, Body Slam, Earthquake, and Explosion. We gotta hope it doesn't go Boom or Earthquake or Body Slam. We basically are just hoping that he misses a Bind. So there's no way that we're getting through this on minimum battles. And that really serves to show just how much better Brock becomes when he's running competitive movesets. Suddenly, with Explosion and the fact that the player always loses a tie, means that he has 2 Pokemon that are perfectly capable of knocking you out if you're under-leveled there. Normally, if you went into that fight with something like Blizzard, you would expect to get some free victories from him using Bide or something. Not here. So we're going to have to go back to Viridian Forest and just take on some random trainers in order to gain some levels. Fortunately, Pokemon like Weedle and Kakuna have no change to their moveset because they can't learn anything. And that's going to allow us to get at least a couple of free wins here. I'm going to use damage rounding thresholds, any level that ends in 0, 3, 5, or 8, to inform my decisions of when to go back and try a fight again, just because those are the spots where you tend to do a little bit more damage to your opponents than you would just from a normal level up. So as we defeat 2 trainers in Viridian Forest, we get to level 8, and I'm just going to go back and try this again, hoping that maybe, just maybe, Blizzard can now manage to get a KO on that Geodude. So back to Brock at level 8, we go Blizzard, and it's not quite a one-hit KO, and Explosion still kills us. So we're still not one-hit KOing the Geodude. I think that's a pretty obvious sign that we need to take more battles. Now, because we're playing Pokemon Red here, there are actually fewer battles before Brock than Pokemon Yellow. There are only 2 additional bug catchers in Viridian Forest, the Light Years boy just in front of Brock, and then Rival 1A. So we're going to take this fight on because we need at least 1 more battle to get to level 10 here. Fortunately, against this Pidgey, we've got Blizzard, which will completely destroy it, and against the Charmander, we can go Earthquake, getting another free win, getting us to level 10. But a slow level up Pokemon will only get to level 10 before Brock if you're fighting every trainer battle that's available. And after that, really what you would have to do is just blackout grind or fight a bunch of wild Pokemon. I prefer to blackout grind because of the fact that I only have 1 Pokemon on the team. If you manage to knock out the Geodude every time, you would get far more experience than any of the Pokemon that are wild in Viridian Forest, and it's not that hard to just come back to Brock again. So at this point, we're at level 10, we're going to try him again, but if we fail, it's going to be blackout grinding time. So back to Brock at level 10, we go Blizzard and miss. We get hit by Seismic Toss, but Blizzard after that does manage to get the 1-hit KO on the Geodude. Now we're actually faster than Onix as well, so we get the 1-hitter right there, getting the level 11. It took 11 minutes to beat Brock. Now that includes me doing live commentary, so you can take that for what you will, but we end up with 5 resets and 3 optional battles just to beat the first gym leader. And while this is certainly better than a normal Tauros that would only be here with like Tackle, it's still not great getting through this fight, especially considering that we came in with 2 super effective moves. Still, that fight is done and we're able to now move on in the game, and let's just see if we can manage to get through the next couple of gyms without any additional optional battles. Consider that Misty, we get a ton of trainers before her when we go up to Billy Boy's house, and for Lieutenant Surge, I expect Earthquake is just going to sweep his team, but we'll have to see if that's actually the case or not. So for now, I'm just going to follow my standard minimum battles route and try to keep us at only 3 optional battles. Technically, that should be 4 optional battles because we did fight Rival 1A, so I've added 1 additional optional battle to the overlay here just to make that clear. Now, as previously mentioned, we are not allowing vitamins, so we won't get the HP up here. I will get the rare candy since that doesn't add stat experience, it only adds level. The whole point is that we want to avoid stat experience that would skew our results, making it look like we're stronger than we actually are. One other thing that I have done is actually taken off Brock's badge because it gives a badge boost in attack, and I want to make sure that we do not have any badge boosts as we go through this one. Now, we will have to turn badges on at certain points in order to progress in the game, but for now, I'm gonna just play without those badges and just see how we actually do. And with that, we've made it to the Super Nerd at the end of Mount Moon, and this guy's super easy. All we have to do is run Earthquake. It's a one-hitter on the Grimer. We get to level 14. Voltorb gets destroyed by Earthquake as well, and Coughing never stood a chance. So we've easily gotten through the Super Nerd. We can pick up the Dome Fossil, and we're ready to move on to Cerulean City and rival number 2. Now, since we are in the slow level up group, I'm going to avoid using any rare candies early in the game. I don't think we use any of them until the Elite Four. So if we run into any struggles here at any point, I'm just going to go and fight optional battles in order to level up at this point in the game. The level ups take less experience overall at this point, so it just kind of makes sense. But for now, I'm just going to go into the rival as I am and see if I can manage to actually get the win. Now, the rival leads off with his Pidgeotto. We obviously have to go Blizzard here, but this is a 2-hit KO and it mirror moves, getting us frozen solid. From there, it can simply use moves like Double Edge and Wing Attack to knock us out, and there was nothing that we could do about that. That was terrible luck. Only a 10% chance to be frozen, and it's only like a 1 in 4 chance that it would use Mirror Move there. So that was ridiculous. Next attempt, we crit, so we simply knock out Pidgeotto in one go. That brings out Abra, against whom we can basically just body slam. Rattata gets completely destroyed, and now the Charmander can just get earthquaked, giving us an easy victory on the second attempt. So interestingly enough, after you just managed to get through the Pidgeotto, everything else there is just a 1-hit KO, super easy. Pidgeotto is a problem though. We're gonna have to figure that out as we go through this run. Fortunately though, I do not expect anything else to really be a major issue on our way up to Billy Boy's house, because this is the only part of the game where we're actually gonna be at a higher level than most of the Pokemon that we're fighting. Add to that we've got Stab with Body Slam and Hyper Beam. Earthquake and Blizzard are just good, strong coverage moves. We should have an answer for everything in this section of the game. And as we come visit Billy Boy, he's going to go into the closet to do a little bit of research here. He's going to come out and conjecture that there are probably other Pokemon that would outperform Tauros in a solo challenge of this version. But for now, we're going to tell him, hey, we're running with the King of OU, deal with it. And honestly, the biggest thing that I'm kind of interested to see as we go through this one is if Bruno actually turns out to be strong against our Tauros, given our relative type disadvantage. It's going to be kind of interesting to see if that is the case. For now though, I've made it all the way up to level 19. We have to fight one trainer inside of Misty's gym that will get us to level 20, and then I just want to see if I can manage to take her down. So Misty attempt number 1. On the Staryu, I'm actually going to just try to Hyper Beam it, and that is enough to get the 1-hit KO. Starmie, I'm not sure that Hyper Beam will one-shot, so I'm going to go Body Slam first, hoping to get the paralysis. We actually get a critical hit, and it wouldn't recover turn 1 because that is smart AI in Gen 1. And now she just X defends, giving us the free victory as we get to level 21. So Misty goes down on the first attempt. 21 minutes 58 seconds to get through that, and we haven't added on any additional optional battles here. We did add on one reset against the rival, but really not too bad to get through that section of the game. And with that done, we're ready to go down to the SSN, where the only required battle is Rival 3, and then we can go straight to Lieutenant Surge, who, like I said, I think is going to be a joke in this one. So there are just a couple of rando trainers to get through here on this route, and then we can go take on those 2 boss fights, but we're going to be relatively at a high level, so maybe the next couple battles will just be really easy. So first up, we've got rival number 3, and let's just see if we can manage to KO this Pidgeotto effectively. We can go Blizzard, obviously it's super effective, and Pidgeotto has lower special, but there's a strong argument to be made for going for something like Hyper Beam, which is effectively going to be the same strength, but uses our higher attack stat. So let's just see what Hyper Beam actually does. Sure enough, it gets the 1-hitter there. I'm going to stick with Hyper Beam on Raticate as well. For Kadabra, its defense is low enough. I think I can go Body Slam and get the 1-hitter. Sure enough, I do. And Earthquake takes down the Charmeleon. so we get just a bunch of one-hitters to get through that team. Rival 3, not quite as strong as Rival number 2. That being said, I may have been in the same boat against Rival 2 where I was better off using Hyper Beam, since it is effectively 225 power after we account for the same type attack bonus, and our attack stat really is quite a bit stronger than our special stat, so unless the opponent has really high defense, we probably mostly want to use our physical moves. Now, we're definitely going to be going physical moves here against the Trash Man. Let's see if Lieutenant Surge even stands up to one hit in this battle. Of course, he leads off with his Volt Orb. We're just going to go Earthquake, getting the easy one-hit KO victory. At our current level, we're even faster than the Volt Orb here. That brings out the Pikachu, who just gets destroyed. And finally, Raichu, whom we outspeed, and we do not quite one-hit KO. It actually survives on a single HP, and he goes for the X speed here. He body slams though, and it doesn't do nearly enough, and our body slam gets the KO on that Raichu. 26 minutes 12 seconds to get through that fight, but still no additional optional battles. The 4 optional battles were only required to get through Brock, and since then, nothing. It's also worth noting that while optional battles in the early game are counted on my overlay the same as optional battles in the late game, arguably optional battles in the early game when we're not getting any stat experience aren't really that bad, since they aren't affecting our stats really at all in the late game. By the end of the game, the experience from those 4 fights is basically negligible. It would be like a rounding error, as opposed to this point in the run where it's probably accounting for maybe half a level. Really not much in the grand scheme of things. But with that section done, it is now time to make our way over to Rock Tunnel, and we have to start off against the Wrapping Lass. Fortunately, Blizzard is super effective here, so as long as we hit all the Blizzards, these are guaranteed one-hit KOs on all of our Pokemon. Who knows, Earthquake's probably strong enough too, Hyper Beam probably gets the job done. I'm just going Blizzard since it's super effective, but honestly, it probably doesn't matter. And you're probably better off just going for something like Earthquake there. Neutral damage, that's still probably strong enough to one-hit KO those Pokemon. We will have to kind of pay attention as we go through this section though. Things like Cubone will want to use Blizzard. Things like Slowpoke, we're going to have to go for our normal type moves. And this is a Pokemon against which Hyper Beam is not a one-hit KO, so it's actually going to take 2 turns to knock this one out, and it rests against us, and we're fully paralyzed. We do manage to paralyze it with a Body Slam, but that was closer than you would have expected, given that Slowpoke knows Amnesia and Surf was doing pretty decent damage. And that's one thing that I really do have some nervousness about as we get later in the game, because the better movesets on the Elite Four could prove to be a massive issue as we go through this one. Still, with that first part of this section done, we have made it to the Rock Tunnel Hiker, who is going to be even more self-destructive than usual. He's coming in with his Geodudes, knowing Earthquake, Rock Slide, Seismic Toss, and Explosion. I'm pretty sure Explosion just one-shots us, but let's see if Blizzard gets the one-hit KO. It does on the first Geodude. We missed the second Geodude taking a Rock Slide. We hit the next Blizzard though, so it does go down. That brings out Graveler, where Blizzard is too much and simply destroys it in a single hit. Obviously, that is why Tauros wants to run Blizzard, typically to deal with rock ground type Pokemon that have high defense, and it worked out perfectly fine there. And with all of that done, we have made it through the Rock Tunnel. We're ready to progress in the game. Now, normally I might even just go try rival number 4 right away, but this is the first time that he has like Gyarados on his team, as well as the mid stage of his starter. He's got the Kadabra. He's got a pretty decent team overall. So I think it's better to go and take on the Rocket Hideout first, and who knows, maybe even take on Erica, since we do have Blizzard on the moveset. Now, in a solo run, there are situations like this where I actually would prefer to have Ice Beam on my moveset rather than Blizzard, just because it has more PP. And there are a decent number of situations where just having the ability to hit more times is better than having the stronger move, especially in a case like Tauros where we're not necessarily going to be one-hit KOing things just because we have Blizzard. But as the rules state, we're just stuck with this moveset for the entire run, so we're just going to come straight into the Rocket Hideout and just see how this goes with our moves as is. So as we make our way to Giovanni here in the basement of the Rocket Hideout, I'm actually a little bit nervous here. I think Blizzard will be fine for the first Onyx and for the Rhyhorn, but the Kangaskhan could actually prove to be a little bit difficult. We're just going to have to see. So first up, of course, on Onyx, I'm going to go Blizzard. It gets the one-hit KO thanks to Onyx's terrible special stat. Rhyhorn, I think, gets the same, but we miss and get hit by an Earthquake. We managed to knock it out the next turn, but it did decent damage to us. Now Kangaskhan, and I see no way that we get a one-hitter with Hyper Beam here, so I'm going to go Body Slam. Of course, we get a crit, meaning that we would have one-shot there with the Hyper Beam, but we're just going to finish it off the next turn. So we do manage to get through Giovanni just fine on the first attempt there. It's not necessarily a perfectly consistent fight by any means, but we can get the job done. And with that done, I am going to make my way now to Lavender and fight against rival number 4. This is the last time that he's like kind of easy still, but he's much harder in Pokemon Red and Blue than Pokemon Yellow, and especially with his upgraded movesets, he could be a problem. Let's find out. So of course he leads off with the Pidgeotto. We are at a higher level, so I'm going to Hyper Beam here. That does get the one-hit KOs. We get to level 29. Now Blizzard, I think, is the play for Execute. It does get the KO. Gyarados, we honestly don't have much of anything. I'm hoping Hyper Beam will one-shot. Sure enough, it does, so we get through just fine there. Body Slam will take down Kadabra, and Charmeleon is still susceptible to Earthquake, so we get the victory right there. That is the last time he has Charmeleon though, so when we fight against rival number 5, Earthquake will not be an option on that Charizard. We're going to have to go for Blizzard or Body Slam or Hyper Beam there, depending on the damage ranges. For now, however, we can just make our way up through the tower, and since Earthquake does work very nicely against these ghosts, we're going to be able to progress through this part of the game without too much difficulty. Against Ghosty Mama, I'm going to go Blizzard. It counters with its own Blizzard against us, but then Body Slam will simply take that Pokemon down, allowing us to progress to the top. And since this is Pokemon Red and there are no Jesse and James fights, we just have a bunch of random rockets to easily KO here. We should be able to get to Mr. Fuji just fine. And sure enough, they're just a bunch of one-hit KOs, so Mr. Fuji's going to thank us for coming here and showing him a Pokemon that is actually worthy. He's going to give us the Flute in order to move on in the game. But now we have a decision to make. Do we try to go to Silphco? Do we try to go to Erica? Do we try to go to Koga? Now, I'm actually going to try to go to Koga first in this one. And there's a pretty simple logic for this. All of his Pokemon are poison type in Pokemon Red, and therefore weak against Earthquake. Add to that poison types in general don't have great movesets in Gen 1, even when you're using their best moves. They're still kind of mid. I think they're going to be much easier than getting through Erica with her sleep spam or the rival 5 fight where he's just going to have a really strong balanced team. So I think this is the easiest way to progress in the game. We are going in a little bit under leveled though, so that could tilt the scales in Koga's favor and mean that we have to try something else, but it's worth at least taking a few attempts first. Still, we'll try to avoid optional battles as much as possible until it's absolutely necessary, and at this point, we still need Hyper Beam to knock out things like these Drowsies, but it is getting the job done until we get to Hypno, which cannot be one-hit KO'd here. Fortunately, we wake up and we survive on 1 HP after the Psychic, allowing us to get the victory, but that second Juggler there was actually kind of difficult. That makes me nervous going into this Koga fight, but let's just try him one time and see how he goes. So Koga attempt number 1, we're going to lead off with Earthquake on the Coughing. That is going to be a 2-hit KO. It is not even close to a one-hitter. We still manage to get the KO because he goes X attack. That brings out the Muck, and we get a Gen 1 miss from Earthquake. That's a 1 in 256 chance to miss. Still, he X attacks the second turn, so that should allow us to get a 2-hit KO, but unfortunately, that's not the case. He does only go Thunderbolt on us a couple times though, so we do manage to get through that. That brings out the second coughing, where we get a critical hit allowing us to one-shot, and now we've made it to the final wheezing. This Pokemon knows Fire Blast, Thunderbolt, Hyper Beam, and Explosion, and I think all of those have a potential to knock us out at our current HP. So the question is, can we critical hit with Earthquake to get a one-shot? Do we go for Body Slam to try to get a paralysis? I'm honestly not sure. I'm going to go for Earthquake just to see the range, and it does like a third. So this looks like it's going to probably be a 3-hit KO, and with that level of HP, we're not getting through. So Koga does not look like he's going to be possible at this level. There are a couple of required trainers that we can still take on. There's one rando inside of Erica's gym, and then of course Erica herself. And there is one random rocket grunt that we can take on before we take on rival number 5. I'm going to lead off by going to Erica's gym here though. Let's just see if we can manage the victory in this gym. So Erica attempt number 1, she leads off of course with Victory Bell, which knows Sleep Powder, Wrap, Hyper Beam, and Razor Leaf. I'm going to go for Blizzard and we miss, allowing it to put us to sleep, and now she's just going to spam attacking moves. She goes Hyper Beam on us, then tries to Wrap, but it's really that critical hit Razor Leaf that I'm worried about. Blizzard is clearly a 2-hit KO here, and we simply go down on the first attempt. Still, if we had managed to land everything, we would have been able to 2-shot there, but we might be better off using a physical move like Hyper Beam. Let's just see what kind of range we get here. Hyper Beam does in fact 1-hit KO the Victory Bell. Tangela is much more physically defensive, so I think we have to go for Blizzard there, but we do manage to get the KO. That brings out the Vileplume, which also has lower defense than special, so I go for Hyper Beam. I miss. It hits a Hyper Beam against me. We trade Hyper Beams. We both have to recharge, but then it puts me to sleep and goes for Swords Dance. And if I don't wake up and it uses a Hyper Beam here, I'm dead. It misses the first Hyper Beam, but hits the second one, and that is all she wrote for that one. Still, this one looks incredibly close, so I think we have to try just a couple more times. This time we just barely missed a range to knock out Tangela, and she used a super potion, but we get a knock it out on the next turn. But now that we know that Hyper Beam will not one-shot Vileplume, I'm going to go for Body Slam, and we get a critical hit that allows us to get the victory. Critical hit Body Slam is generally speaking going to be stronger than the Hyper Beam, which is why that worked out. So the second attempt against Erica, 43 minutes, 28 seconds. We do manage to get through. We're now up to 9 resets, but still no additional optional battles since the Brock section. So not terrible, not great. It is worth noting that because I'm not allowing badges here, I actually haven't been using Fly to travel around, which is slowing down the run quite a bit. Normally you would just fly back here to Saffron or down to Fuchsia, but in this one, we're just gonna have to walk it or bike it in order to get there. It's almost like real life. We can't expect this Doduo that we randomly caught to be able to fly us anywhere. But now I'm going to come into Silphco and I'm going to fight this one random trainer. He's only got an Arbok. We can go Earthquake, which is not quite a one-hitter, and then he Earthquakes back. Not what we wanted to see. Again, Hyper Beam technically would have been stronger and probably gets the one-hitter there. So not looking great. But with that trainer going down, we can technically try our hand at rival number 5 one time just to see. And then if that's not working, we may just have to go back down to Koga and try him once again. But first things first, let's just see the rival and see how he goes. He leads off with the Pidgeot. I'm just interested to see what Blizzard actually does here. It does about half. That tells me that Hyper Beam's probably not going to one-shot here. Still, we can knock it out the next turn with a Body Slam. That brings out the Execute, and Execute has higher defense than Special, so we do want to go for Blizzard in general there. We get the critical hit at least to 1-hit KO. That brings out Gyarados. We're at approximately the same level. I see no way that we one-shot here with the Hyper Beam. Its Hyper Beam nearly knocks me out, but after one Body Slam, Hyper Beam will take it down the next turn. Alakazam, we can try to go for Body Slam, but it just Seismic Tossed and knocked me out. Still, I want to try this again just to see if we can get a slightly better range. Starting with the Pidgeot, I'm going to see what Hyper Beam does here. And yet again, it does not manage to get a one-hit KO. We clearly need 2 hits on that Pokemon. So now with that knowledge, I'm actually going to use a Body Slam on the Pidgeot first. It goes agility and then into Hyper Beam itself, doing really good damage. So we're probably losing this one as well. Short of some misses, we get a nice Hydro Pump miss from the Gyarados at least. That brings us back to the Alakazam. We survive on 1 HP and he potions, allowing us to knock that one out as we get to level 35. But now we have Charizard in front of us. Charizard is faster, and if it goes for anything other than Swords Dance, we're probably dead. It body slams and we simply lose. So it's pretty clear that that fight is not going to go at this point for us. We would need at least 2 more levels in order to be able to outspeed there. So instead, I'm going to go down to Koga once again and just see if we can manage to get the victory after gaining a little bit of experience against Erica. So Koga attempt number 2. Let's just see what Hyper Beam does, since it is technically the stronger move. It does not get the one-hit KO against the Coughing, but then he gets a miss. So we get to knock that Pokemon out. Here against the Muck, I'm actually going to Body Slam it, and then let's just see what Earthquake does here. It's still going to take 1 more hit to knock this Pokemon out. Still, we get the job done. Body Slam now on the Coughing. We get a critical hit, then it Fire Blasts me and burns me. That's probably the worst result that we could have gotten, because the burn means that we're not going to do anything when we actually get to the final Wheezing. Let's try this one again. So here, knowing the range is a little bit better, I think we just Body Slam and then go into Earthquake against the Coughing. For Muck, we still have to just stick with 2 Earthquakes in order to get the 2-hit KO. It does X attack, but it actually turns out to be a 3-hitter because of ranges. The whole logic for Body Slam here, though, is just to try to get paralysis. Maybe it buys us an extra turn. The final Wheezing, though, we did not paralyze anything in that entire fight, and it just Fire Blasted me down. It's also worth noting that if anything uses Explosion here, we're basically just dead. So this is actually a really tough fight to get through. So with Koga definitely not happening and the rival not happening, we've finally reached a point where we have no choice but to take optional battles. So since we need optional battles, I'm going to come and fight the Fighting Dojo, just because I'd love to come here and just get some free XP. But this could be a situation where even the Fighting Dojo turns out to be really hard, given that we are running a normal type Pokemon. Still, we get through all the regular black belts with no issues, so it's time just for the Dojo Master. He leads off, of course, with Hitmonlee. Let's see what Hyper Beam does here. It gets the 1-hit KO, and on Hitmonchan, we don't get the 1-hitter. It's a 2-hitter, but then Submission just knocks that Pokemon out. So while he did use the right play, it didn't deal enough damage, and we managed to get through. So we'll humiliate the Dojo by taking their Hitmonlee as our prize, and now we can go back and just fight a couple more trainers before we try Koga again. Now, honestly, if we had the badge boost and attack, it would probably be making this Koga fight much easier. We'd definitely be getting a 2-hit KO on that Muck rather than a 3-hit KO. We might be doing more to Wheezing, for example. Like this Wheezing against this rando trainer didn't even go down to our Earthquake, even though we're at a higher level. And that tells us just how much it affects things when we don't have badge boosts in a solo run. But after gaining a couple levels, we are ready to come back to Koga at level 38. We'll try him once. If he doesn't work, we'll go back to the rivals since we did get all the way to Charizard. We'll just see how that works out, because at this point we should actually be faster than basically everything, but it still might not be possible. Koga's up first though, and I'm going to try Hyper Beam on the Coughing. It does get a 1-hit KO. Now Earthquake on the Muck, since this is going to be a 2-hitter. It hits Thunderbolt, but that's not a major concern. We managed to knock it out just fine. Now Hyper Beam on the second Coughing gets the KO there. Now I'm going to Body Slam again on the Wheezing, hoping to get a paralysis. Doesn't happen, and it gets a critical hit Fire Blast to knock me out. Next attempt, we get to see that Hyper Beam is not a guaranteed 1-hit KO on the Coughings. It's kind of a range here. So we're really hoping that he uses some X attacks and things like that to give us a better chance of getting through. So back to the Wheezing, but not on full health. This time we do paralyze it though, and with it fully paralyzed, I'll go for Hyper Beam, and it survives with 3 HP. He X attacks twice though, giving us the victory. So that was tough. An hour, 2 minutes, 16 seconds to get through Koga, but we had to add on more optional battles, 9 more in fact, in order to level up enough to get through that. And even then, we got insanely lucky on that final run. We got kind of bad luck in that we didn't just one-shot against the 2 coughings, but the fact that we were able to get so many X attacks in that fight was the only reason it worked out. Definitely, this is a spot where your mileage is going to vary, but we can now make our way down south. And with that, I'm actually going to make my way down to Cinnabar Island, just because in some ways Blaine is kind of easy. He leads off with a Growlithe and a Ponyta that I don't think are going to be super scary, so it's really just about the Rapidash and the Arcanine. In theory, super effective Earthquake should do pretty decent damage here, but let's find out if that's actually the case, or do their upgraded movesets actually make these Pokemon really hard. Now, of course, if we could learn the move Tombstoner, that would guarantee that even a Caterpie would beat the entire game on minimum battles, and it would have made any Pokemon the king of Gen 1 competitive. Here, however, we're stuck with our moves as is, and it's time for our first attempt at Blaney Boy. So Blaine attempt number 1, he leads off with the Growlithe that has lower defense. I'm going to go for the Earthquake here. We do get the 1-hit KO on that Pokemon as we get to level 39. Now Ponyta, I'm just going to go with the same strategy, Earthquake one-shots. That brings out Rapidash, which has pretty balanced stats, but it misses a Fire Blast, and then he Super Potions. He's on very low health, and Earthquake is going to take that Pokemon down after 3 hits. That leaves only the Arcanine. Now Arcanine knows Fire Blast, Hyper Beam, Body Slam, and Rest. We'd kind of like it to use Rest here. Body Slam's not the end of the world though, since we can't be paralyzed by Body Slam. And when it goes Rest, I'm pretty sure we have the victory since it's a 3-hit KO with Earthquake. So basically Blaine just threw the fight, but the fact that and that proves just how dangerous it can be to go for rest strats against a Tauros. That probably not. So while Blaine claims to be a genius, I don't think he was a Gen 1 competitive player. Anyway, with that done, it's an hour, 6 minutes, 2 seconds to get through Blaney Boy. No additional battles required in order to get that one done, and we just beat him on the first attempt. And now at a higher level, I think we have a decent shot of taking on rival number 5. And if we can get through him, we can try Sabrina as well. Now here I did run into a random trainer, so I'm just going to fight them to avoid having to go back and fight Blaine again, since I do feel like that fight against Blaine was kind of lucky. Fortunately, that trainer goes down nice and easy, and we're ready to move back on in the game. Now it's worth noting that when I distributed this ROM previously, just with the base starters, you would not have your badges locked out. I'm only locking out my badges with my overlay, so it's part of my real-time setup here. Granted, you could put in GameShark codes in order to turn off badges in order to get this same gameplay experience. So if you're trying to do this without setting badges to be off, you're probably getting through much easier with your Tauros, since at this point all of its stats would be 12.5% higher. But now it's time to once again try Rival 5. Let's just see how he actually goes. So first things first, we're at a higher level. I'm just going to see what Hyper Beam does on Pidgeot. A critical hit at least does get the 1-hit KO. Execute gets completely destroyed. Gyarados, I'm going to Body Slam. It looks like 2 Body Slams will just get the job done. Alakazam's slower and Body Slam just destroys it. That brings out Charizard. Now I don't know what the ranges are on this Charizard. Technically, Blizzard is super effective, but it's still going to be weaker than Hyper Beam, given that Hyper Beam is a physical move using our higher attack stat, but I'm not sure it's going to one-shot, so I'm going to go Body Slam here. We do about half, and Fire Blast ends us. It might be a situation where a Hyper Beam with a crit would get us through in a single turn though. That's like a 21% chance, so we can reset for that, I think. I think it's reasonable enough to try for that level of luck. So here, let's go Hyper Beam on the Charizard. This time it goes Swords Dance, but we just couldn't manage to move, of course, with the recharge turd, meaning that we lose that attempt. So honestly, going for Paralysis is probably our best play, but here the Charizard goes Earthquake, and it didn't do that much. Still, we missed the Hyper Beam, meaning it Earthquakes us again. We're down to 3 HP as we use the Hyper Beam to finally knock that Pokemon out. that is a very close fight against rival number 5. Like, yes, technically we've managed to get it to go at this level, but you probably would need to gain quite a few more levels to actually make that one consistent. But with that done, we are ready to make our way to Giovanni number 2 inside of Sylph. Let's just see how he goes. He's going to lead off with Nidorino. Earthquake is the obvious play here. It's just a nice, easy one-hitter. Now against the Kangaskhan, I expect it to be a 2-hit KO. We body slam. We'll just hyper beam it down from there. That brings out Rhyhorn, against which we will go Blizzard. And now Nidoqueen has higher defense than special. So this is a really borderline spot, but I think Blizzard is the way to go here, even with our lower special stat. We do over half as he guard specs, and now I'm just going to try to body slam that one down. We get the victory on the first attempt against Giovanni. He turns out to be no difficulty whatsoever, and we've managed to get through Sylphco with no additional optional battles. So we had to take more optional battles in order to get through Koga, but since then, Lane, Rival 5, and Giovanni went down just fine, and it's now time to make our way out to Sabrina. So Sabrina, attempt number 1 incoming. Let's see if Hyper Beam does enough to get us through this fight. So Sabrina, attempt number 1 here. Body Slam just destroys the Kadabra, which is perfectly fine. I'm even going to go Hyper Beam here on Mr. Mime just in case. Now Venomoth, in spite of the fact that it is a flying type, we're just going to go for Hyper Beam here. We miss. We have to hit the next turn. It does knock that Pokemon out. That brings out Alakazam, who is faster than us and obviously knows Psychic. Anything other than Psychic, though, I think we're good. It goes Seismic Toss, and Hyper Beam ends it. As we get to level 43, we defeat Sabrina on the first attempt, an hour, 13 minutes, and 4 seconds. Because in spite of the fact that Sabrina does have smart AI in this version, she was not smart enough to use Psychic there. That was her mistake. We definitely need to upgrade the AI in order to make it a little bit harder than this. But for this one, we're using standard AI, and with no additional battles or resets, we have made it through another gym. So at an hour, 13 minutes, 4 seconds, we are ready to head on to Giovanni, the final gym leader. And while normally I clown on Giovanni, particularly in Pokemon Red and Blue, because he's still using things like Poison Sting on his Nidoking, it stands to reason that when he's actually given decent moves, he could be tough. In particular, that Rhydon could be a major issue given the fact that we aren't going to have anything other than Blizzard to use there, and it's going to hit pretty darn hard when it hits us back. Still, we won't know until we try, so let's get into this fight and see how it actually goes. So Giovanni, attempt number 1, he leads off with the Rhyhorn, of course. We go Blizzard and get the 1-hit KO right there. Now against Dugtrio, it goes Earthquake. We're going Hyper Beam. Since it has fairly low defense, we knock it out nice and easy. That brings out Nidoqueen, against whom I'm honestly not sure what to do. I'm going to go Earthquake here. Looks like it's a 2-hit KO on that Pokemon. We do manage to knock it out. Nidoking is out next. Maybe we want to go Blizzard. I'm honestly not sure here what the best play is, but once again, he guard specs, giving us the free victory. That brings out the Rhydon. Rhydon, the play is obvious. Blizzard is the only move to use here. When we miss, it earthquakes and we go down. So honestly, I'm not sure if we're even going to be able to get back to that Rhydon in this one. So I'm going to just reset a couple times to see, but really I'm not feeling super confident. Next attempt, we crit both Nidos though. So we do get back to Rhydon here. We once again missed the Blizzard, but from full health, Earthquake does not one-shot, and we get a critical hit Blizzard that does one-shot against the Rhydon. That was insane. We got 3 critical hits against the last 3 Pokemon, so we only got hit once in that entire fight. He guard spec'd on the Dugtrio, giving us another free victory. So we're up to 21 resets, but only 13 optional battles to get to this point. We're still rocking a pretty good score overall in my scoring system. We would still be in the S tier, A tier sort of category, in spite of the fact that our opponents are using competitive moves. Granted, not with competitive strategies. That will be be a future project to program an AI that can actually use these moves effectively, but for now we are going to progress in the game. And now, last time we had issues with getting the rival to show up when I turned off badges. Let's see if he actually shows up this time. Sure enough, he does. So let's see how this fight actually goes. First off, against the Pidgeot, there are a lot of strategies that we could go for here, but I'm going to start off with a Blizzard strat. This is a 2-hitter, but it goes for Sky Attack, so we knock it out with no damage. That brings out Rhyhorn, against whom we absolutely have to go Blizzard. We miss and get a critical hit Earthquake that does massive damage. So we're not looking super great. I tried to go Hyper Beam on the Execute and missed again. Psychic knocks me out. Next attempt, we actually freeze the Pidgeot so we can easily knock it out the next turn. Once again, we miss on Rhyhorn, but this time it goes Body Slam, allowing us to knock it out the next turn. Hyper Beam connects on Execute, getting the 1-hit KO. We'll Body Slam the Gyarados, getting the Paralysis. Still, Hydro Pump did massive damage. We knock out Gyarados the next turn with Hyper Beam, but Alakazam is too fast, and we simply go down to Seismic Toss. So this fight is definitely not looking pretty. We're going to need a lot of luck, I think, to get through this, or we're going to have to start grinding more battles. This time we one-shot the Rhyhorn though, only for Execute to use Explosion. Still, we survive just fine, but then we get paralyzed by Gyarados' Thunderbolt and we go down. The fact that we couldn't manage to land our hit on the Execute was the problem. We have to manage to one-shot the second and third Pokemon here if we're actually going to get through this. Next attempt, we do manage to hit everything, only for Execute to hold on with 2 HP. That allows him to use Psychic, but fortunately he potioned the next turn because, yeah, the AI is perfect. And that allows us to get through to Gyarados, still on decent health, but not after the Hydro Pump. We're simply going to be down to 3 HP, and that's all she wrote for this one. It's worth noting that because of Smart AI, that Alakazam is only going to use the move Seismic Toss against this Tauros because it thinks that it is super effective, even though it is a fixed damage move. Gen 1 AI only considers type when it's looking at effectiveness. And with this fight giving us this much difficulty, I see no way that we're going to get through the league without gaining more levels. So I think this is a spot to just start blackout grinding. Because number one, we don't need money for anything in this one. And number two, even if we go fight some rando trainers, they're going to only give about the same or less XP than knocking out the first 4 Pokemon on this team over and over again. So this is probably the more efficient level up strategy. And here the whole issue is speed. Once we're able to outspeed the Alakazam, which will happen within a few levels, we'll actually be able to get through this one much more easily. Here we do get one attempt where we actually get to Alakazam with better than 50 HP remaining, and that allows us to knock that Pokemon out, bringing us to the final Charizard, which we do in fact outspeed. Now, I'm not sure if we're actually going to be able to get through here, but I think Body Slam is the play to try to get the Paralysis. It just didn't quite work out at this level. Still, that gives us at least an idea of what that final Charizard fight looks like. It might set us up for some potential in the future. If we do get there and paralyze it, at least with decent enough HP, we might actually have a chance. Here we level up to level 49, and that actually gives us enough speed that we're guaranteed to outspeed the Alakazam. So after we knock out Gyarados here, Alakazam, we can just go for a Hyper Beam and get a 1-hit KO. Now on the Charizard, I'm just going to kind of go for it. Let's see what Hyper Beam does. Does about 3/4. We get Body Slammed, and then it goes for a Swords Dance, allowing us to knock it out the next turn. So we get to level 50 as we finally defeat rival number 6. But that was not pretty at all. And keep in mind, that required us to actually have our badges turned on for that fight, because otherwise the rival would not show up there. So with that, I'm ready to try my first attempt against Lorelei. I'm not sure how this is going to go. We're coming in at level 50. We've already taken a bunch of optional battles here, but maybe it works. Otherwise, maybe we have to drop the rare candies right here. One change we do have to make, however, is to turn off all the badges. From here on out, no badge boosts. Like I said, only Rival 6, we had to turn them on so he would show up, and that could mean that this is significantly harder to get through. Now, first up, we have the Dugong. We would love to have Thunderbolt here, but unfortunately, that is not on our moveset, and Dugong is rocking Blizzard, Surf, Body Slam, and Rest. I think our only play is to go Body Slam here, hoping to paralyze it. It rests, and that should guarantee that we can knock this Pokemon out. Sure enough, we do. That brings out Cloyster, against which we really don't have anything good. It's rocking Blizzard, Rest, Clamp, and Explosion. If it booms, we're in bad shape. We don't have any good special moves here for it. Again, this is a spot where we really wish that we had Thunderbolt. We do manage to paralyze it with the first Body Slam. It goes to sleep after that. We get another crit with Body Slam here. We're going to try to Hyper Beam it down, and I managed to get through with no damage on the first two Pokemon. Now Slowbro, running Rest, Amnesia, Surf, and Thunder Wave. It only has one attacking move. That's what was listed on Smokin'. You can go and debate them about it. Here, I'm just going to go stick with the Body Slam strats and then try to Hyper Beam it down from there. That does in fact work. Jinx is going to be a two-hitter with Body Slam after it misses, so that was an easy victory. And now we've made it to the final Lapras. Lapras knows Sing, Hyper Beam, Thunderbolt, and Blizzard. I do not expect to have any shot of one-shotting here, especially since we're at a lower level, so Body Slam is the play. We get a nice crit, but it puts me to sleep with Sing. It misses Blizzard after that. It hits Thunderbolt, and then Blizzard simply knocks us out. If we had not been put to sleep, though, we actually would have had a shot there. That was incredibly close. So I'm going to try this a couple more times, but then I am going to think about rare candies here because that first run seemed really, really lucky. And sure enough, we go down to Cloyster on the next attempt because it just had too much defense, and without the crits, we just simply don't get through that Pokemon. So what's clear is that that first attempt was insanely lucky, and now we have to kind of make a choice. Do we go for the rare candies or do we start blackout grinding? I'm going to try the rare candies one time here because maybe with all the rare candies, we're simply good to go for the entire league after this. I honestly don't know. So I'm just going to test it out and see. So I'm going to save once before the rare candies. I'm going to slam them right now. And this is going to get us up to level 61. Let's just see what this does for our ranges. So first up against the Dugong, we're at a higher level. We paralyze it with a Body Slam, and then we can Hyper Beam that Pokemon down. Cloyster, we Body Slam and get the paralysis. Now Body Slam looks like it's going to be a 3-hit KO here. It's definitely a 3-hitter after the crit, so we take no damage from that Pokemon. Out next is the Slowbro. It goes Surf, which did massive damage, and we did not quite get the range with the Hyper Beam, but we get to knock it out the next turn, and we actually just barely miss the range, so it gets to go Rest against us. Still, we knock it out after that. Jinx should have just been a Hyper Beam, but unfortunately we missed and it put us to sleep. Now it's going Rest though. If it goes Blizzard, we're dead. So that brings us back to the Lapras, which appears to be a 3-hitter with Body Slam at this point. So possibly one Body Slam, one Hyper Beam. I'm not sure. I'm going to reset a couple times to try this out more. This time we get a nice critical hit Body Slam on the Dugong, but it lands Surf, which did massive damage. And we still kind of need a good range on this Cloyster. We managed to get back to Lapras, but on low health, it simply can knock us out. We have to get better luck than that if we're actually going to get through here. So the fact that it's clearly not consistent even at level 61 makes me think that the only thing to do here is start blackout grinding in order to gain more levels, since after using the rare candies, it's just going to take even more XP in order to level up here. We'll go back to level 50 before the rare candies and just fight her a bunch of times. So after a little bit of grinding, we're up to level 54, which means with the rare candies, we could get to level 65. I'm just going to test out after rare candies if it's possible to win at this point. So at level 65, we can see Dugong is just a 2-hit KO with Body Slam. Cloyster appears to be a pure 3-hit KO here, a 2-hitter with a crit. Slowbro, we can manage to hit with one Body Slam, and then I think from this range, we should be able to knock it out pretty darn easily. Sure enough, we do. Jinx comes out, Body Slam, one-shots. We're still over half health when we get to the Lapras. We paralyze it. Now it looks like it's going to take a couple more hits, but we'll just Hyper Beam it down, and we managed to get through Lorelei with 69 HP remaining. So very nice, very perfect. as we get through that one. Now it's time for Bruno. Let's see how he goes at this level. I'm going to save with the rare candies used since we finally got through Lorelei. I expect Bruno to be fairly easy. I think with Earthquake and Hyper Beam, we're going to be just fine against Agatha as well. So the next real challenge I think is going to be Lance, but let's find out. So Bruno attempt number 1. Obviously we go Blizzard on the Onyx. That's an easy one hitter. Hitmonchan, I'm just going to body slam it. This is a 2-hitter as he submissions. Let's see what Hyper Beam does on Hitmonlee. That does get the 1-hit KO. Blizzard on Onyx. And now at level 66, we've made it to the final Machamp, which is running Body Slam, Low Kick, Hyper Beam, and Earthquake. It runs Low Kick because of the fact that it can flinch and because Submission has recoil and isn't very accurate, but it is enough to knock out our Tauros, even after getting paralyzed. Still, I think Hyper Beam would have one-shot there on the Hitmonchan, so we're going to try this again. But if our goal was to lose once to Bruno, we actually succeeded in this one. So I guess achievement unlocked or something like that. But here Hyper Beam does one-shot Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee. Second Onyx goes down to the Blizzard, and now on full health to Machamp, we'll Body Slam. It Body Slams us back, but then we just Hyper Beam it down. The second attempt, when he doesn't go Low Kick, we get through that fight just fine. And with that done, we're ready to take on Agatha. Let's just see how this goes. So first up on Agatha, she leads off with the Gengar. We go Earthquake. That is a 1-hit KO. Golbat's out next. I'm going to try to Hyper Beam here, and we do get the 1-hitter there as well. Now we get the Haunter, which, by the way, I think is the best Gen 1 sprite in the entire game, but tell me what you think down below. I'm just going to go Earthquake and one-shot that Pokemon. Arbok is also weak to Earthquake, so it's an easy 1-hitter. That brings out the final Gengar, and we are faster at this point, so we simply go Earthquake and get the 1-hit KO. Agatha never stood a chance. And with that done, we have made it to Lance, the second to last trainer, and we actually get a run where we get through Agatha with no damage whatsoever. She was an absolute cakewalk. But now Lance could be hard. We're just gonna have to see. So Lance attempt number 1 against his Gyarados. I think we just Body Slam here, and then we'll go into the Hyper Beam after that. We miss Hyper Beam though, so it gets 2 hits on us. That was a lot of damage. Now against the Dragonair, I'm going to try to Hyper Beam. That is a 1-hitter with a crit as we get to level 67. We managed to knock out the second Dragonair. Now we're going Blizzard on the Aerodactyl, and as Dragonite comes out, we land the Blizzard and get the 1-hit KO, allowing us to get through on the first attempt. Now, honestly, I think against the Dragonairs, we could have gone Blizzard or Hyper Beam since, Blizzard is 2 times super effective. Hyper Beam is the same type move. Using our higher attack stat, I think both strategies are probably about the same in terms of damage, but we'd have to see. But clearly when we get to Aerodactyl and Dragonite, Blizzard is the only play. So fortunately, our moveset did work well enough to get through those Pokemon. But now we have the champion in front of us. I don't think we're going to one-shot the Pidgeot with Blizzard, but we'll just have to see. Alakazam should go down really, really easily with the Hyper Beam as long as we outspeed. Right on, we're going to go for the Blizzard, and then we're just going to have to see about the last 3 Pokemon. I think they're going to be 2-hit KOs at best, but let's find out. So champion attempt number 1. I'm going Blizzard first on the Pidgeot. That's a 2-hitter, but he charges up, so we knock him out the next turn with a Body Slam. Now Hyper Beam for the Alakazam is a 1-hit KO. Right on, we go Blizzard and get the 1-shot there. That brings out Exeggutor, and Exeggutor is just a tank, but it has less defense than special, so I think we just have to go for the Body Slam here. We get a nice crit, but then it explodes, taking us to low health. We level up to level 68, but now Gyarados' Hydro Pump is too much. We need to not get Explosion, I think, from that Exeggutor if we're gonna get through. So let's try this again. We'll Body Slam first on Pidgeot, Hyper Beam did massive damage, and there's nothing we can do about that. Still, we're able to knock out Alakazam yet again. Blizzard once again on Rhydon. Oh, is not a one-hit KO in this one. It actually survives, so that's clearly a range. Still, we do manage to get through. Back to Exeggutor. Body Slam. This time it goes Sleep Powder, then Explosion. So we once again go down. So back to Exeggutor again. This time it goes Psychic instead, but even that from 100 HP remaining is enough to just end us. So really, that Exeggutor might be the problem on this entire run. That's why I didn't want to go up against the Venusaur team. I thought it would be a little bit too easy. Turns out I was right. Now, we could go for Blizzard just to try for a freeze strat here. We actually get a crit and then a Sleep Powder miss, allowing us to knock that Pokemon out. We're to Gyarados on full health. Now it goes Hyper Beam, but we get to knock it out the next turn thanks to our own Hyper Beam. That brings out the final Charizard. We are faster here. So Body Slam, it goes Swords Dance, and then Hyper Beam ends it. We managed to beat the rival. It took like 4 resets there, but he did go down without any additional levels. It took an hour, 51 minutes, 42 seconds to get through that one. Obviously, this wasn't perfectly optimized. As mentioned, I was basically running it without badges, except when we had to go to the league and fight rival number 6, since at those points they were actually required. But the rest of the time I was running around on the overworld, actually having to run everywhere. So it takes a lot of extra time. And we finished this one with 39 resets and 28 optional battles, dropping us to a score of 89.1. So this would not be an S tier Pokemon by any means by my calculations. We're talking like an A tier Pokemon, but still pretty darn good. And with the champion done, he's going to say, why did I lose? Well, clearly because you forgot that Tauros is the Pokemon you needed on your team. I mean, he's like halfway there to having a competitive team, and then what does he do? Leads off with a Pidgeot. Come on, just throw Tauros on as your lead and suddenly you're a world beater. Or maybe a Snorlax, or maybe a Chansey, but definitely not Chansey in this one. We would have destroyed Chansey. But still, we get registered in the Hall of Fame. Tauros, the OU Pokemon, does manage to get through the game as a solo challenge. It is not minimum battles, however, not anywhere close, but that does make me wonder if there is a Pokemon that can beat the game on these settings with these movesets, but minimum battles. I think it would require either something that is much stronger than this, or something that is using sleep strats. That's just my personal guess, but tell me down below if you think there's a Pokemon that with a competitive moveset could actually run the entire game as a solo challenge with no optional battles. I'd be very interested to hear it. Anyway, that does it for this one. I want to say a massive thank you to the channel members and all of you guys who watch, as I am still on my grind to get closer and closer to becoming a full-time PokeTuber. If you'd like to support me in that, consider joining that channel membership, or maybe watching one more video at the end. Anyway, appreciate you guys. I will see you in the next one. Later.